Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas using the source material itself. And today, we've got a fantastic one. It's a story all about tradition versus some radical new ideas. A real clash between a master, his star student, and, well, a man who would go on to change the world.
So what happens when a top student starts to seriously doubt his renowned teacher? We're going to dive into a 2,000-year-old Buddhist text that tells this incredible story of intellectual courage, and it all kicks off with one simple, but you could say, dangerous question.
All right, so let's set the scene. Our story starts with this guy, Apala. Now, Apala isn't just any student. He is the star pupil of a really famous Brahmin master named Feijiashe, who's a celebrated scholar with, get this, 500 loyal students. So Apala is brilliant, he's dedicated, he's basically at the top of his class.
So you can imagine the scene. Everything's going along just fine. And then, word starts spreading about this new teacher in town, the Buddha. And his name is becoming, legendary. Apala, being the super curious intellectual that he is, asks his master about him. But Feijiashe, he's pretty secure in his own fame, and he's just dismissive. A little bit proud, maybe?
Yeah, the master totally refuses to go. He basically says, look, my status demands that others come to me. So Apala comes up with a proposal. He says, okay, let me go. I'll test his wisdom. I'll see if this Buddha guy is everything they say he is. And his master, probably thinking it's a good way to shut this down, agrees. So Apala sets off with his fellow students.
Okay, so Abba gets to the Buddha, and he does not waste any time. He goes right for the jugular. He immediately challenges the Buddha on the absolute central pillar of his entire worldview, the superiority of the Brahmin caste.
He just lays it all out, plain and simple. He states the belief he has been taught his entire life. And you gotta remember, this isn't just some abstract idea for him. This is the very fabric of his society, it's his identity, and it's the source of his teacher's authority. It's everything.
Now pay attention to the Buddha's method here. It's brilliant. He doesn't lecture, he doesn't condemn, he just poses this simple, logical, hypothetical question. It's designed to test the consistency of Apala's own belief. And, well, Apala's kind of forced to admit that, yeah, the son would be accepted.
And the Buddha doesn't stop there. He follows up with another question, but this time it's about Apala's own ancestry. And it turns out his own grandmother was in fact born from a servant. Wow! With just a couple of really precise questions, the whole argument for inherent purity based on birth just collapses. Apala is left completely, utterly speechless.
So what we're seeing here is a truly revolutionary idea being introduced. It's this: nobility isn't something you're born with. It's something you earn through your actions. This is a massive shift from a rigid inherited hierarchy to a dynamic system based purely on ethics and your personal conduct.
All right, so the conversation takes a turn. Apala, who's probably still reeling from that first exchange, now starts to question why the Buddha and his followers would give up things like family and legacy, things that his own tradition holds as absolutely sacred.
And again, instead of a lecture, the Buddha illustrates his point with a simple little story, a parable. The story shows how our attachment to power, to legacy, can actually become a direct source of conflict and pain. The king in the story, he ultimately chooses peace over power, wisdom over worldly succession. Pretty powerful stuff.
Okay, so now Apala is getting curious about the nitty-gritty details. He asks the Buddha to compare the ethical rules taught by his master, Feijiashe, to his own. And let me tell you, the difference is, well, it's profound.
Just look at the contrast here in who these rules are for and what they're trying to do. Feijiashe's rules are really specific, kind of ritualistic, and they're only for an elite few. And the goal? A better afterlife. But the Buddhist precepts, they're a universal ethical foundation for everyone right here, right now, in this life.
And for those who decide to go all in, to choose the path of full renunciation, the ethical training goes way deeper. We're talking 250 rules guiding every single thought, word, and action towards clarity and compassion.
So you see, the ultimate goal here isn't just about getting a better rebirth. It's about complete and total liberation from suffering itself. This state is known as being an arhat, someone who has achieved a true and lasting peace. But what does that freedom actually feel like? To explain it, the Buddha uses these incredibly powerful analogies, and each one of them evokes this immense sense of relief, of joy, and the end of some heavy, long-standing burden. It's not some abstract philosophical concept, it's a profound, tangible release. So, can you imagine this moment? Abba returns to his teacher, and his entire worldview has been turned upside down. He is completely sold on the Buddha's wisdom, and he tries to explain everything he's learned.
But Feijiashe, he doesn't react with curiosity. Oh no, he reacts with pure anger. His pride is just deeply wounded. He simply can't accept that his star pupil is challenging the very foundation of his authority and his reputation.
So, driven by this potent mix of rage and, probably a tiny sliver of doubt, Feijiashe decides he's got to confront this upstart teacher himself. He's going to prove him wrong, in person.
And so the meeting is set. Feijiashe invites the Buddha and his monks for a meal. After it's over, with his anger still kind of simmering under the surface, he asks to hear the Buddha's teachings for himself, directly.
So the Buddha repeats the exact same clear, logical arguments he presented to Abi. And as Feijiashe hears them firsthand, you can just picture his pride and anger completely dissolving. They're replaced by this overwhelming sense of reverence, which he expresses in this really beautiful verse of praise.
And then, in what has to be a truly stunning turnaround, the master follows the path his student discovered. He, his entire family, and all 500 of his followers, they accept the very philosophy he had so furiously rejected just the day before. Incredible. Now, in all their excitement, Attoba and the other students immediately want to become monks. But this is where the Buddha shows his wisdom as a teacher. He advises them, hey, just go home. Integrate the core 5 precepts into your daily lives first. Build a solid foundation before you take such a massive step.
And this, right here, is what the story leaves us with. It's an ancient account for sure, but it asks a question that is just as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Is true wisdom found in honoring tradition no matter what? Or is it found in having the courage to question everything, in our own search for the truth?